Hi, and welcome to Ashburg. So for this week's video, I wanted to hop on the trend of people ranking their books from 2023, from the worst book to the best book. We are going to tackle 49 books in this video. I did read 55 books in 2023, but I cut out all the graphic novels out of this list and mangas just because it's hard to rank them against full-blown novellas or novels. We have a lot of ground to cover, so just really quickly want to say, when I say worst to best, I mean my personal views on these books, not that these books are objectively better than one or the other. So a book that technically may have been more poorly written than another book might rank higher because I just loved it so much. And I want to make sure that I say that because you might see some things here that I can't explain. But as I feel like people mostly read books for personal enjoyment, that will be reflected in my rankings. Number 49 and my official worst book of the year is Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. Even saying the title again, I should have known. So in this one, a group of friends rent a cabin in the woods and somebody starts picking them off one by one. Like 98% of the characters in this book were absolutely despicable. If your main cast is comprised of people who are absolutely insufferable and meant to be hated, I don't care if they die. I won't bat an eyelash. I won't shed a tear. If the creepy killer is sneaking into your main character's bedroom with a knife, I'm like, get him, which completely removes the thrill. Because part of the thriller is that I'm scared that something's going to happen to a character that I like. The plot had promise at first, but by the time I got to the end, I just thought it was so ridiculous. There was one point of view in particular that when I saw that the author had written this in, had actually put pen to paper to include this, my jaw dropped and I knew this was going to be 1 star. That was that. At number 48, we have The Dark King by Gina L. Maxwell. So in this one, the main female character goes to Las Vegas and goes to a casino and basically meets the casino king. He's a brooding crime boss, but for some reason they find themselves very attracted to each other and unable to stay away. They also get really drunk, and when they wake up in the morning, they've married each other for some reason. And that propels them on a very long, strange journey that actually starts to include some supernatural, fantastical elements down the line. This book is what happens when you pick something up purely because you want to read smut and the universe treats you accordingly. And I can't even be mad because I knew what it was going to be. The writing was poor, the plot was iffy, I did have to drag myself to the end. Would I read the second book in the series? Probably. I'm stupid. Number 47, Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. Alice Feeney can catch hands. I have given Alice Feeney so many opportunities to stop pissing me off, and for some reason, I have a book on here by her still that I have to read. Problem with Alice Feeney is that, oh wait, what's this book about? A young woman goes to a family reunion in this like really old manor house on a deserted island. She gets trapped on the island with her family when a storm comes in and somebody picks them off one by one. I was with Daisy Darker. I was devouring Daisy Darker until I got to the end, and I was so angry. It didn't even make sense. It was a waste of my time. She got points for making the thriller pretty addictive, but number 46, we have If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. You could put a gun to my head and tell me to tell you what this book was about and give you my thoughts on the book, or else you'd shoot me. Bang. I don't know. I saw this on Goodreads that I read it and I was like, I did? I don't have any recollection and I'm not going to look it up. I would like this to be the great mystery of my life. So do with that what you will. Number 45, we have episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. The cast of a ghost hunting show goes to a property that's supposed to be really, really, really haunted. And they try to get good footage for their kind of dying show, and they absolutely get what they ask for. This had so much promise, and I'm constantly on the hunt for books that I feel like are genuinely going to terrify me. And when things started to kick off with the supernatural force, I was hooked and I was scared. But man, oh man, did this just devolve into nothingness. It went away from being scary and just turned into this metaphysical mess. I was so disappointed, especially for a book of this length because it was pretty long. For number 44, we have King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. In a world where there are humans fighting the vampire threat, a princess strikes a deal to marry the vampire king in order to bring peace to the lands and goes to his empire to live. Remember that comment I said about picking up a book because it had smut? Well, this book was just so... She tried to get you to care. I will give her that. I just think that it just wasn't successful. That's just how I feel. You're not the star of the show. To me, big skip. Now we're moving into the category of 3-star books that did quite a bit wrong, but did get a few things right. For number 43, we have The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. So a very mysterious and complicated author invites a bunch of young amateur writers to her house for a writing retreat. Unfortunately, when the girls get there, they realize that everything with this author is not as it seems. I did find this book to be very atmospheric. I was really nervous for the young girls, like the entire time they were at the retreat. There were definitely some parts that thrilled me, as a thriller should, and I was mildly interested, but ultimately this one was pretty forgettable. This is like a fun book that you might read on a Tuesday, finish it in a couple days, and then never think about it again. Number 42, The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. A woman gets engaged to a guy who's pretty much a Rockefeller. He tries to shield her from meeting his family, but eventually he runs out of time, and when she goes to meet the family for the first time, she finds out that when the family gets together, they play these very odd, strange, but also terrifying kinds of games. And as the newcomer, she's expected to play too. I was shocked to see how far she would go for this man. I already know I don't have what it takes to be a part of this family. I would never. The minute I see something untoward, the police are getting called. I should sacrifice my mind, body, soul, and mental health for what? Dick? You could throw a rock and hit a dick, girl. Get your stuff. This book was honestly a blast. It had a really good plot twist. I don't know if the plot twist made sense, and I will never, ever go back to look and see if it did. Number 41, we have So Happy For You by Celia Lasky. This one, ooh, you know, now that I'm thinking, this one should actually go below The Family Game because I didn't like it, but I liked it. So this book takes place in a future where there are now all of these wild incentives for young people to get married. And as a result, wedding culture is officially off the rails. So this young woman is asked to be, I think, the maid of honor to her childhood best friend's wedding. But when she gets to the wedding, she starts to think that maybe her best friend's actually trying to kill her. This is supposed to be a not so subtle attack on how crazy brides can be when it comes to their weddings. It was just so wacky. Not to say that I have any issues with wedding culture. I think that you should have the wedding of your dreams if that's what you want. Just be nice to your loved ones, okay? Because the wedding will end at some point and we'll all remember that you were the biggest jackass. Number 40, we have Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. So this book concerns a lesbian couple. One half of the couple has just returned from this very strange expedition under the sea where something went horribly wrong. And although she's now at home with her wife, she's just not anywhere close to being the same person. And the book discusses what that means now for her spouse. It was one of my most highly anticipated reads of 2023. But by the time it was over, I just was not seeing what other people were seeing in this. This book is centered around grief, trying to care for the husk of a person that's now remained, trying to get answers to figure out what even happened under the ocean and what her suffering looks like as a result of not being able to get those answers. I think what I was really missing in this book was my ability to emotionally connect to or care about either of these characters. I think the author's focus was so heavily on trying to write so much lyrical prose and craft this very haunting atmosphere that she let the characters just slipped completely by the wayside. And although it was only around 200 pages, I felt like it went on forever. Just massively, massively disappointed. Number 39, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. A couple decides to have a very lavish wedding on a remote island, and when they get trapped there, people start to die. The characters in this were so bleh. The ending of this was so bleh, which sucked because, as you could probably tell by now, I love thrillers where a small group of characters is isolated from the rest of humanity and then bad stuff starts to happen to them. Like, if that's the plot of your book, I'll pick it up every time, but I keep getting burned. I think I'm just trying to recapture what it was like to read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and I could just never get it again. Number 38, we have Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, who I was just talking about. This book was bad. I mean, it's Agatha Christie. It was still better than 78% of thrillers that I've read. This book is part of her Hercule Poirot series. He goes on a cruise ship that goes through the Nile and does like a little tour of Egypt, and while he's on there, he has to solve a murder. I actually really liked the reveal and ending to this one, but man, oh man, did she take so much goddamn time to get there. This book should have been shorter. There was so much lead up to get to the actual murder. Just flipping the page, flipping the page, flipping the page. Like, Agatha, please, I'm just one person. This is just not one of my favorites by her. I can think of like 10 other books that I would pick up before I would pick this one up. Number 37, Happy Place by Emily Henry. Two exes go on vacation with their best friends, but none of their best friends know that they are now exes. They don't want to ruin the vibes of the trip, so they pretend to still be together, and this book is about all of the chaos that unfolds because of that decision. I made a whole vlog about this that you can watch on the channel, so I'm not going to get too into it, but just know that this broke my heart in that I can't believe that I spent $27 on this book. Number 36, The Swifts, A Dictionary of Scoundrels by Beth Lincoln. This is a middle grade book, so this one's on me. I didn't love it. Why would I? I'm not 11. But this is a murder mystery book about this really big family where every member of the family has a name that comes from the dictionary. And their name, which is randomly selected, determines what their personality is going to be. So if they're scrolling through the dictionary and you land on the word demonic, get your Bible. This was cute. It was fun. The author really leaned into the whole personality thing, and so getting to uncover the different Swift family members' personalities was like so much fun. But again, it was a middle grade, so it was just okay. Number 35, we have The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. Oh God, I don't even want to explain this one to you. Okay, so this one's a murder mystery within a murder mystery. So there's an agent who wants her client's manuscript for this murder mystery that he's writing. But the client dies and the manuscript goes missing, and she goes on this big journey to find the manuscript. But then you're also in the book reading the manuscript that he was writing, because the manuscript might have clues to what happened to him. Long story short, the manuscript within the book was so much better than the book. I didn't need the whole thing with the agent looking for the manuscript and trying to figure out what happened to the author. To me, that was a waste of time. But the book that the writer was writing, phenom. Number 34, we have The Drift by CJ Tudor. I can't explain this one to you. I'm really sorry, because this book has like 3 different plot lines going on at one time. It's a thriller that takes place after some like chemical apocalypse has happened, and there are 3 main characters trying to figure out how to move throughout life now that this horror has happened. So much different stuff is going on. I think that you should really look up what it's about for yourself and decide if that's what you want. I personally didn't love it. It was one of those odd circumstances where I didn't love the beginning and I didn't love the end, but I actually adored the middle. The middle was so action-packed and suspenseful and had so many good little reveals sprinkled throughout. But by the time we got to the end, I was so like over it. Number 33, The Club by Ellery Lloyd. So The Club by Ellery Lloyd takes place on an island where the biggest asshole of CEOs has just built this celebrity resort, and he invites all these big time celebrities to come to this resort for this grand opening, and of course it all goes to hell and people start to die. It's designed to be a thriller, but the strength really just comes from the fact that you get to just see all these horrible people be horrible and then kind of get their comeuppance as a result of being horrible. If you love celebrity gossip, if you love The Real Housewives, if you love mess, you'll give this 3 stars. If not, 1. Number 32, we have Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. So when our main character was a little girl, she starred in this horror movie. And after the movie was released, people in the cast started dying in ways that were similar to how they died in the movie. She and her family flee from whatever curse this movie has, but when she gets called to cover a series remake of that movie, all of the same horror stuff starts happening again. This book, there were so many parts of this book that made me scream just because I didn't see it coming, and not in the way that you don't see like a plot twist coming. I mean, just the most random violent stuff would just go on right before your very eyes, and I was like, ah! It's a horror book, and at times I really did think it was kind of scary, but overall not one of my top horror books. If you like slashers, and when it comes to slasher books, you don't have to think too hard, you're fine with just the violence of it, then I would recommend this. Number 31, Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh. So our main character, Eileen, absolutely positively hates herself and her life. Her dad is an abusive alcoholic that she unwillingly cares for, and she also has this very menial job at a boys' prison. The boys' prison hires a new guidance counselor who Eileen kind of develops this weird obsession, attachment / crush on, and as a result gets caught up in a very strange crime. Eileen was bleak. This was a pretty bleak book. Eileen as a character is just so damn pitiful and pathetic. It was really tough to read from her point of view, and I'm fully aware that this was the point. Like, it's Otessa Moshfegh. She likes writing just the most despicable main female characters doing despicable things, and I can respect that. That doesn't mean that it was enjoyable, and that definitely doesn't mean that I needed to be here to witness anything that Eileen was doing. If you're someone who likes the cool girl aesthetic genre of books, you'll really like this one, but no. Number 30, we have The Sanatorium by Sarah Pierce. A former detective gets invited to the hotel opening of her estranged brother. There's a massive snowstorm and everyone at the resort gets snowed in. And then people start to die. Overall, this book was really just okay, but I gave it some extra points for two things. One, there was one scene in here that actually chilled me to the bone. I just coughed so much, I almost threw up. Oh my god, I didn't throw up. Let's keep going. What was I saying? Oh, chilled me to the bone. And number 2, and I'm not proud of this, the epilogue. The epilogue itself made me desperately want to read the second book. I don't know. There was just something about it. Number 29, Writers and Lovers by Lily King. And we are back 3 days later. And I think I recorded an hour and 15 minutes of footage, and we didn't even get through halfway through the list. I have poor time management. So I think where we left off, we were at number 29, which was Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I picked the smallest font. A young woman recovers from the death of her mother and navigates her romantic relationships. This one I had really high expectations for because I had heard so many good things about it, but frankly, it was just okay. I wish I had emotionally connected to it more, and I think that I was kind of looking for something that was going to give me the same feelings that Ghosts by Dolly Alderton did. Why are you hitting me with the bunny? Are you crazy? For number 28, we have Paradise Rot by Jenny Wahl, a Norwegian exchange student who starts to attend university. I forget the country that she's in, but she moves into a pretty terrible apartment with just the weirdest female roommate. And I mean terrible, like there aren't real walls. It's just plaster boards. Beetles will sometimes fall from the ceiling. If somebody designed my torture chamber, it's a short book. It addresses the very strange, intimate, erotic relationship that she has with this roommate and what happens as a result of it. Squeak one more time. The writing in this was beautiful. I thought the prose was lush. I felt so present as she's walking through like the foggy streets or going by the harbor. An odd little story that didn't leave too much of an impact on me. I don't recommend this for people who are uncomfortable with frequent references to pee. You heard me correctly. Number 27, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. A woman in her 30s who cares for the elderly gets assigned to a family where the elderly patient she'd be working with was accused of murdering her entire family. Riley Sager, he has the capacity to do such good, and he wrote my favorite thriller of all time, which is Home Before Dark, but his books can be so over the top, and that's really not for everyone. This book had the most fascinating premise, finding out the event of what happened when this woman allegedly killed her entire family, but by the time I got to the end, I was like, Riley. So So just an okay one. Number 26, we have Acts of Service by Lillian Fishman. A young bisexual woman gets entangled in a relationship with another man and woman. This book was part novel, part just manifesto on sexuality, especially a woman's sexuality in the modern world. It had some pretty good ideas, some good revelations. Reading about this dynamic between the three people in this pseudo relationship was fascinating, but they all needed therapy and to stay so far away from each other. Number 25, we have Always Be My Duchess by Amelie Howard. This was a historical fiction romance that I read, which is a genre that I do not touch. I was pleasantly surprised. In this one, we have a young ballet dancer who is in desperate need of money, and she agrees to be the fake fiance of a duke. Played out exactly as you would think. It had a lot of really good sexual tension and pining, and it was smutty, and overall it was just very romantic. Number 24, we have Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur, which is another romance. This is a contemporary sapphic romance about two women who pretend to date each other to get their respective family and friends off their back. I love the two respective personalities of both of the women and the way that they came together. I would definitely recommend this, a very cozy and sweet romance. Romances aren't going to be too high up in my rankings because romance isn't really my favorite genre. I like a little combo with romance and fantasy, or romance and action or something, which is evidenced by the fact that number 23 is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. Love Hypothesis will always have a special place in my heart. I don't want to hear any negativity about it. I know it's stupid. Mind your business. But to me, Love Theoretically is her second best book under Love Hypothesis. But if you hated Love Hypothesis, you might like Love Theoretically more. There's the fake dating trope, but not in the way that you think. And I thought that these two main characters just had a lot of good chemistry. There's a big beefy dude, and he dates the littlest itty bitty. Number 22, we have Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. And in this one, we have Nena and Nestor, who are two young Mexican people. They live in the 1800s on Nena's family's ranch, and they have to deal with not only the pressing threat of Caucasian colonizers, but then also vampires. I still to this day cannot believe that they tried to convince everybody that this was an actual horror book. Come on now. It's a romance book with some spooky elements. If you want a dark supernatural romance that really is going to take its time to develop the relationship, then that's a book for you. But if you thought that this was something that was going to be scary and Nena and Nestor's relationship was kind of on the backseat, this is not it. Good book though. I don't think about it much. Number 21, we have The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. There's a rich old lady in a house full of terrible people and they kill her. There is a book on my rankings that has a very similar plot and just it blew this one out the water. But as far as mysteries go, it was really, really good. Number 20, Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. I don't know if I can even explain this to you because I don't know what happened. We have a little boy who goes away to his family's summer house and he meets these two other children. And during that summer, they make a really gruesome discovery. And this book talks about how that discovery changes the shape of their lives. It's definitely one that I would have to read again because I don't think the first time I fully grasped everything the author was doing. Right? A few spooky bits, but by no means was it a straightforward read. Number 19, we have Belladonna by Adeline Grace. So we have a young orphan on the cusp of adulthood who is being sent to live with one last family before she comes of age and I think gets her family's money. She has a big old secret in that she's able to see death personified. And when she gets sent to live with this last family, she gets involved in a murder investigation. A YA historical romance, but pretty heavy on the murder investigation too. I really liked this. I thought the murder investigation was well thought out. I liked the main character. I liked seeing her relationship with death because it's not a kind one. You don't find out that you're able to see death and think to yourself, oh, good. And I loved the fact that Adeline Grace just spent so much time building up this very gothic atmosphere. Really good. Number 18, we have The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. This was also another shorter book. Science fiction, which I think makes this the only science fiction on my list. Gotta rectify that this year too. But the young captain of a spaceship finds out that there's something horrible on board that threatens the lives of all the people that she's in charge of. This was a book that I picked up just for fun, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I think this got such a high ranking because I had just zero expectations. I'd never even heard of this book before, but it was so action-packed. My heart was pounding while I was reading it. And if I'm going to read sci-fi, that's the kind of sci-fi that I like. Number 17, we have God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This book takes place in a world where gods are forbidden. Humans are not allowed to pray to them or make them offerings, nothing of the sort, because it only makes them stronger. To combat the problem of having all these gods trying to run amok in the world, the king has hired God Killers who go around and I mean, whether you're the god of the sun or whether you're the god of the 3 nickels in my pocket, if you cause a problem, they're on your ass. So our ruthless god killer Kissin comes into contact with a little girl who has a pretty dire god problem. And her problem is that she woke up one day and this cute little god is somehow bound to her. And so Kissin, the little girl, the tiny god, meet up with a knight and they go on this grand adventure to figure out how to separate the little girl and the god. I think this book was 300 pages long. I'm telling you right now, that first 250 meant nothing to me. There was so much buildup. I don't even think I had a firm grasp on the magic system. By the time I got to page 250, I was like, okay, this might get 2.5 stars. And then the final 50 hit, and I never felt like that about a final 50 pages in my life. I damn near ripped a box braid out my head when I got to that final 50 pages. I will be reading this entire series. Number 16, we have Hold Back the Tide by Melinda Salisbury. A teenage girl lives on the outskirts of this village by the lake with her father, who she suspects of having murdered her mother, but she's unable to prove it. And while she is trying to gather enough money to make her escape, she discovers that her village has a really dark secret that is threatening to break and destroy everyone who lives there. This was very grim. It was heartbreaking, it was intense, and I really enjoyed seeing what this teenage girl was capable of. Not a book that I think about that often, but when I do, I'm like, ooh, that was a good book. Oh, see? It's trying to start. Number 15, we have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This was explosive. Our main character is a journalist from a wealthy Missouri family, and she very reluctantly must go back to her hometown to investigate a string of murders that are taking place there. I mean, Gillian Flynn, if some stuff comes out about her, it's true. Only a sicko can write this many dark books about just the darkest things that are this good. I was just entirely overwhelmed. Totally recommend, but not when you're having a depressive episode. That's not the time to do this. Number 14, we have The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This should definitely be under Sharp Objects, right? In this one, an alcoholic, semi-retired actress flees to her house by the lake after her husband tragically drowns, and she has a very public meltdown. There she meets a new couple consisting of a supermodel wife and her business tycoon husband. She finds herself spying on this couple through binoculars, which, why? If you're gonna get caught. One day the wife goes missing and she takes it upon herself to investigate what has happened to her. Sager definitely took quite a few liberties in this, but I personally think it paid off. Again, if you need your thrillers to be believable, babe, stop it. Number 13, we have Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I think hundreds of years ago, there was this big war between demons and the nuns who rode against the demons. Some of these demons, instead of being vanquished, were preserved in these little objects called relics, and this is a massive oversimplification of the plot. And our main character, who is a young nun, finds herself in the possession of a relic and becomes bonded to the demon that's inside. Meanwhile, an evil presence is attempting to rise from the ashes and destroy her world. So with the help of this demon, and she doesn't know whether or not this demon can be trusted, she goes on a quest to vanquish this evil presence. I really liked this book. I loved the religious imagery, the very taut dynamic between the nun and the demon living inside of the relic, going between the feelings of thinking that the demon can definitely be trusted, and then the demon doing something the next scene that says, oh no, it couldn't be trusted, and proving to me once again that I could never be a fantasy main character because I'd be killed. So ready for book 2, and I still check periodically to see if there are any new announcements. At number 12, we have The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Oh my gosh. This is when we start to get into the books that really, really just blew me away. This is a book about a small fishing village. One day, when all of the men are out in their boats out to sea, a giant storm comes and kills all the men, leaving the women to fend for themselves. And this book takes place like hundreds of years ago. So at the time, having all of these women just by themselves was practically unheard of. And so while they try to sustain themselves, the church sends some new religious leaders to live on the island with them and restore order. This book wrenched my chest open and spit out my heart. Reading about what these female characters have to endure, all in the name of just having basic independence. Just so much suffering. The writing was beautiful. I felt so immersed. The story was horrific and heartbreaking, but man, oh man, do I recommend. Number 11, we have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. A young soldier gets called to aid a family who lives in this castle because they think that something seriously wrong is going on within the castle. Another short book. I wish I had 100 more pages, honestly. Oh, the eerie feeling, the imagery. Ooh, I will now read any horror that T. Kingfisher writes. Any person capable of stringing those horrible words together to make me read them is somebody I'm not going to play about ever again. Definitely recommend. Number 10, we have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by Cher. Don't have anything to say about this. You already know what it is. It's Harry Potter. What do you want me to say? I will, however, let you know that I'm reading each of the Harry Potter books and having a lot of in-depth discussions on my channel, Chamber of Secrets, coming out next. So, number 9, Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. Another book that I picked up just because, why not? So this book is about a wife whose husband's mother has just committed suicide. And this mother was a raging narcissist and kind of wrecked her husband's life. But her husband feels so much guilt about his mother's death that he falls into this really deep, incurable depression. And Mother Thing is the story of the wife doing whatever it takes to fix her husband. Oh, so unpredictable. The wife is her inner monologues are so funny, but so real. So real. The way she thinks of things that I've thought of, but I would never vocalize or else the men in white coats would come pick me up. I loved every second of it. I'm pretty sure I gave this one 5 stars. If you find yourself looking for a book and you have nothing to lose, pick up Mother Thing. Number 8, we have An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. One day, these giant robot sculptures appear out of nowhere and land in all these major cities across Earth. And our main female character becomes the first person to document their existence. So she has to now deal with being the most famous person on the planet and also trying to figure out what these robot sculptures are, where they came from, and what they want. Just fantastic. It really does have a lot to say on what it means to be like a social media star, what it does to yourself and the people around you, enemies that you make. Of course, my favorite part was finding out about these robot sculptures. I think there's at least one other book in this series, which I'm thankful for because the ending was so unsatisfying in the best way possible. And I love Hank Green's brain for coming up with it. Number 7, we have Crooked House by Agatha Christie. This is the other mystery book that I was telling you guys about. In this one, we have an old, wealthy patriarch who has this large mansion in England. He has all of his ungrateful wretch children and grandchildren living up in the house with him. And one day, one of them decides to kill him. This was yet again another book that I was not sure of. And then I got to the ending. I was driving in the car with my partner, and as he was driving, I slapped him. Every time I think about the book, I have to reflect on the ending because, number 6, we have None Shall Sleep by Ellie Marney. If you like Silence of the Lambs, this is Silence of the Lamb, but for kids. No. It is YA though. I think this book takes place in the 1980s. The FBI hires these 2 teenagers to interview teenage serial killers to see like what makes them tick. What makes you serial kill? Where does your bloodlust come from? Instead of killing other people, did you ever consider playing Animal Crossing? And so while they're interviewing these teenage serial killers, the FBI is investigating another serial killing that has kind of taken over the national news. And our two main characters find out that one of the teenagers that they're interviewing might have knowledge of what's going on outside. But that main female detective in Silence of the Lambs interviewing Hannibal for details on Buffalo Bill is the same stuff. Very straightforward, very gritty. It almost feels too realistic in the way that she writes it because there's no flourish. So when you get to the parts that are supposed to have the emotional resonance, man, oh man, do you feel it. I forced my partner to read this book. He does not really like to read, but he loved this. He's literally reading the sequel right now. I'm definitely going to hop on the sequel after he's finished. Totally loved. Number 5, we have Who Could That Be at This Hour by Lemony Snicket. Of course, Lemony Snicket is the author of a series of unfortunate events. So this book is about a young boy who works for a very vaguely described detective agency. And he gets paired up with an older detective who's a bumbling fool. And together they are tasked with solving a mystery concerning the theft of a very random artifact. In this book, Lemony Snicket has crafted a cast of characters in a small town that is so quirky, it's almost unreadable, and I couldn't look away. I was absolutely obsessed with this. It was crazy once it started. It was nonstop. We were constantly uncovering things, constantly finding out why things didn't make sense, only for more things to not make sense. This is definitely not a book for everyone. I loved it. Number 4, we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This was the second book that I read for my week of vampire books reading vlog that I did. So in this one of Dracula's brides recounts her time with Dracula over the centuries. Really chronicles the centuries of abuse that these brides endure at the hands of Dracula. Just a very serious depiction of domestic abuse. The writing in this was just so lush, so gorgeous, so full, so purposeful. I felt just the torrent of emotions that the brides must have felt. It had such a strong impact on me, especially as I was reading it. And it's a book that I'm going to want to come to over and over again. Number 3, I Am Appropriately Humiliated. Number 2, Ghost Story by Peter Straub. 4 old men in the small town in New York commit a terrible crime, and in doing so, unleash a horrible, horrible monster upon the town. Another book that I did a whole reading vlog for if you want to get all the juicy details, but all in all, a horror book that was genuinely terrifying, that I didn't even want to read when I was alone in my apartment because I was so scared to pick it up. It's just not very common that I read horror books that really sink their teeth into me and give me the feeling of being off balance when I stop reading because I'm so deep into the story and deep into the world and deep into the characters. So well constructed, so well thought out. A labor of love for the horror genre, for sure. If you like Stephen King books, you will love this. And then finally, we get to number 1, my best book of 2023, and that book is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This book is the second in the Locked Tomb series, the first book being Gideon the Ninth. Because this is a sequel, I don't want to get too into what the plot is. And I've also just been talking for so long I can't even see straight. My microphone cord is swimming before my eyes right now. If you are interested, I will include the premise of Gideon the Ninth in the description box for you to read because I can't explain it to you. I cannot stress to you how much the Locked Tomb series means to me. Tamsin Muir, to me, has one of the most brilliant minds for fantasy that I have ever read. Her books are just so beyond unique. The world that she's crafted is so breathtakingly complex. Her books are dense, confusing, frustrating, sometimes almost incoherent. Her books are books that I have to read slowly, one page at a time, one sentence at a time, with a microscope in my hand to make sure that I'm not missing a single word, or else I won't know what's happening and I'm a stick beside her. If she's ever in court and I'm on the jury, she's going free. You'll never get her. You'll never get her. I've been recording for an hour and a half. I have a family. They're looking for me. I have to go. We have ranked all 50 books that I read in 2023. Thank you so much for joining me for this long video. I hope that you got some good recommendations. Let me know what your top books for 2023 were. Or let me know the books that you just absolutely hated from 2023. And it's okay if Fourth Wing's on there. I get it. I get it. Thank you so much for visiting Ashburg. We were so happy to have had you, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. Bye!